Hello friends, this is Gail Anderson. This is Mentoring Moments for Moms. So glad you're joining us. I know a lot of you watch the replays on YouTube, and I'm so thankful that you do. There's a lot of people that I catch at very busy times. You're either at work, taking care of your kids, feeding them lunch, depending on when I'm on. But thank you if you're watching the replay. Really appreciate that, and I hope you're getting something out of it. I also love to connect each of you with each other. So please, when you're on, make comments, ask questions, and my email's in the profile. So I would love for you to email me. Let me know you're watching, what you like hearing about. I really appreciate it. If you are on live and you want to share this broadcast, just swipe to the right. You can share it with your friends. And if you like what we're talking about today, tap on the screen, give me some hearts, and that would be wonderful. I would appreciate knowing how you feel about what we're talking about. So we talked a little last week about boundaries. Today we're going to continue that a little bit. Boundaries, privileges, and responsibilities with children. And you know, our job as parents is to prepare our children for life, to guide them into maturity, to have some kind of structure so that when they leave our home, they know how to function in a world that does have boundaries. We like to say that there aren't, but we have rules, regulations, and boundaries on the job and just living in our world. So that's part of what we want to do, is prepare our kids for that. So boundaries at home are just having rules or boundaries with our children that keep everybody safe, everybody happy, and to have peace in your home. It also helps us as parents to be a little bit more in control of our children rather than having a child-centered home where everything revolves around the children and the children make all choices for themselves. That would be absolute havoc. Staying up all night, eating anything all day long, eating only desserts, not foods that are good for them. You know that those aren't things that are good for kids. So we're going to talk about some of those. Some of the areas that we talked about last time were food, bedtimes, extracurricular activities. I do want to post a document this time. When I put this up on YouTube, I will put a link to a document where I actually have listed some of the sample areas of boundaries that you might want to consider in your home. And then questions you can ask yourself, okay, can they have food on their own? Can they take things without asking? If they can have snacks, what are the choices? There's just different questions that can help guide you through that process to having some great boundaries for your kids. And again, the whole purpose here is that we as parents know more what our children need than they do. And we need to be able to enforce that in their life. Okay, so let's talk about when you can say yes. You know, there's certain boundaries we have, but then there's times we can just cross those boundaries, cross them or make an exception. Now, I know a good example of this is when I had my grandchildren up at Guthrie Green, a big green area in Tulsa, and it was in the fall, in September. It was a bit chilly. They had their Sunday clothes on because we did this after church. And they looked at this splash pad and wanted to go in there. And they kind of looked at me. Now, normally, no, you wouldn't do that. It was a little cool. We didn't prepare for it. They had their church clothes on. But you know what? I thought, what's the harm? This would be something very fun for them. And what's the worst thing that could happen? Their clothes are going to get wet, which means we're going to wash them. They might get cold. Well, I do have a few blankets or towels in the car so that each one will be able to be covered. So we did it. And being able to cross those boundaries at that point was so much fun for them. And it really was a great experience. But you know, there's times where we have to say no to those boundaries. And it's nice if we can do that in a more positive way. For instance, I would love to be able to do that today. It's just not warm enough. Maybe we'll have a nice warm day next week where we can do that. Give them some hope instead of always saying no. At least say yes next week, or yes, the next time we come we'll be able to do that, rather than always saying no to your kids. Okay, few reminders that we talked about last time, which I think are essential with boundaries. One, give them freedom within the boundaries. Kids do need some choices to make, and you want to just give them a couple of choices, 2 or 3, maybe more if they're older, but having some freedom within that boundary. Okay, yes, we're going to have snacks. We're not going to have cookies. We're not going to have cake. But yes, we can have an apple, an orange, or banana because we have fruit for snacks. That helps the child to feel a little bit of responsibility and autonomy for himself. So that's the way you can coordinate between the parent being in charge and having boundaries and also giving freedom for your child within those boundaries. Second of all, do not give them choices where they shouldn't have them. For instance, what would you like for dinner, Johnny? Is it a completely open thing? Is he the only person in the family who's being fed? No, you don't want him to have complete freedom. Especially if you have more children, you want to have a decision yourself about what's being served for dinner, not just an open ticket where he can decide anything he wants. Okay, the third thing is to follow through with reasonable rewards and consequences. Rewards are for when your children stay within the boundaries, and consequences if they don't. If you don't have any rewards or consequences, then what happens is those boundaries are completely negotiable. Completely. They do not even really exist unless you're enforcing them in some way. Now, I've done lots of scopes earlier on different rewards, different ways that you can reinforce your kids' behavior, and some of the consequences. So go on YouTube, go to Mentoring Moments for Moms, and you can see those different scopes to get more information on that. Okay, the fourth thing is to give simple explanation to your child according to their age about why that boundary should be there. It's not just there because mommy said so. There is a reason for it. Okay, we don't throw trash all over because we want to have a beautiful home, a beautiful yard, a beautiful park, a beautiful world. This is just something that we do. It's amazing that we have to have restrictions and consequences like fines for adults who are actually throwing trash in places where they shouldn't. We should have learned this way early on and formed those boundaries for ourselves. So something to think about. Number 5, obey first, and then you can ask me why. Especially if you're talking about safety. If you want your child to stop doing something that can be very harmful to him or someone else, you don't want them to turn around and say, "Why, mommy?" and have to answer that question before they stop. No, they should obey your word, do it right away, and then they can say, "Why, mommy? Why did I need to do that?" So this is a great thing to remember. That's one of my favorites in training. Last time we had a question about having different boundaries for different ages. Now, if there's a big span in the ages between your kids, that's easy to see. It's very easy to explain why one child gets one privilege and another one doesn't. But when they're closer in age, it's a little bit more difficult. But that still does not mean that you have to give them the same responsibilities or the same privileges. Those privileges come with age and maturity, and they come as long as the child is getting more responsible. As he gets older and more responsible for himself around the home, then he gets more privileges. It all goes along with their age and maturity. And if you were actually taking the privilege of a 15-year-old and giving that same privilege to a 10-year-old, believe me, you are making a mistake. What is he going to expect when he's 15 and the other one is out of the house? No, that really belittles for the 15-year-old the fact that he has earned that privilege. So make sure that you're differentiating between the children. I'm kind of a real stickler on this, especially as far as bedtimes. You know, if you're not out and everybody's home and you have bedtimes, don't be putting everybody to bed at the same time or 2 kids that are 3 years apart. Give them at least a 15-minute space to where they can have a little bit extra time because they're a little older, a little bit more time to do their own thing or spend with mom and dad before they have to go to bed. So it's a good thing to have those differences and see that as a good thing. And make sure that you're explaining to your kids why it's a good thing and how they have something to look forward to when they get to that older age. Okay, let's see, got that. This helps you and puts you more in control of your household instead of having a child run home. And basically, if you are doing these things, then you can train your children. You can teach them, you can train them, and they will become responsible adults. That is in opposition to just throwing your hands up in the air in futility and saying, I can't do anything about him. There's nothing I can do. Yes, there is. We can train our children by having boundaries and having rewards when they stay in the boundaries and consequences when they don't. And these are all reasonable things that I'm talking about. I mentioned last time the book, Boundaries with Kids. How Healthy Choices Grow Healthy Children. And this is an excellent book. There's a link in the profile on YouTube for my scope right before this, which would be, I think, number 159. This is 160. So I do want to recommend that book. Also, on today's scope, in the details, in the information on YouTube, I'll have that link to the document I wrote with sample areas of boundaries and questions you can ask yourself to develop those boundaries for your home. Boundaries are a good thing. Boundaries are liked by kids and they feel more secure. Even if they fight against them, it's just because they want to know where they are and they want to know those boundaries are secure. So don't feel bad. Don't be embarrassed if you put boundaries on your kids. This is something that adults should do to train their children. Tomorrow I've got a great topic. I should be on here with my husband Kirby. And if you've not signed up for his blog and his newsletter on a weekly basis, please do that. In the information on Periscope, you will find the link to his blog, KirbyAnderson.com. We have tons of blogs that we've written. He has video blogs that he's done. And if you are a parent, if you are married, if you're interested in being healthy, if you're interested in developing yourself, then this information you will find interesting. You can actually go in the search box, search for the general topic, and get all the blogs we've written on those topics. So thanks again for joining us. Hope you have an awesome day and have fun being a mom today. Thanks again.